Hi, folks, and welcome to another Sunday Morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
I'm Benjamin.
There ya.
Who else is here?
No one.
Oh,
Where is he?
I don't know.
He didn't even respond.
No,
Is that what the kids call ghosting?
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yes, don't you see his image?
This ghost?
Over there?
I don't know.
We need to call the ghost hunter.
It's sad.
Drop some enthusiasm in this podcast, which is sorely lacking.
It's sad because one of these crossovers he was going to love.
Really?
He was going to love. I mean, I think we would have had some crossover. Or he would have changed his mind.
Interesting.
Everyone can see the title here. Top 5 TV spinoffs that should have happened.
So I don't think we need to drop any spoiler alerts in this one because these are just things we wish would have happened.
Wish would have happened, could have happened, should have happened, in my opinion.
Now, the way you're phrasing this, it sounds like you are basing this off of your favorite TV shows you wanted to see more of. Or is it the shows themselves or the characters in those shows?
I think that's fair because your favorite shows, you do want them to continue.
Yeah, certainly.
And sometimes a spinoff of a certain character is worth it.
Sometimes.
I'm recently one of the things, and this is why I'm on Mikey here. Over my parental leave, I needed something to watch, and it was the Andy Griffin Show. I've seen him on and off here and there. My cousins were big Andy Griffin fans. Went, you know what? I've seen some. I've seen I Love Lucy.
How many episodes are there of Andy Griffin?
Tons. Well, with all the spinoffs and everything.
Heaps.
Yeah. But I've seen all the Dick Van Dyke.
Wow.
I've seen the classic comedies.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to watch them all. Now, Andy Griffin's the biggest one that I haven't tackled. And I was like, you know what? Now's the time. It's not the funniest by far, but it has some tender moments. It's country living, and I enjoy it.
Sure.
I am on the last season of the Andy Griffin Show, the 4th season of Gomer Pyle UMSC, which is their first spinoff.
Wow.
That went 6 seasons.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I am going to be watching Mayberry RFD, which went 3 seasons, and then the TV movie back in 1986, Return to Mayberry. So
goodness.
that's going to finish my trip. My goal was to finish that by the time I got done with parental leave, but I just don't binge watch stuff.
Doing it more or less chronologically according to air date.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, and I'm watching like all Gomer Pyle and then watching all Mayberry that season, and then watching all Gomer instead of going episode back to episode.
Yeah.
But yes, and air date, and I started thinking, hey, what other spinoffs would have been good to have?
So you think Andy Griffith is what spawned the idea for this podcast?
Yes, because I'm watching Gomer Pyle right now, and I'm thinking, could they have spun off another character? And in my opinion, no. That was the obvious choice. He was super popular.
Couldn't do Barney. He's too much for his own
Well,
show?
he was getting movie offers by then and had to leave the show anyway.
He's like, I got Apple Dumpling Gang money now.
Ghost and Mr. Chicken, The Incredible Mr. Limpet. He filmed all of those while they were doing season 6 of the Andy Griffin Show, and in between filming,
is he scarce?
He comes back. He comes back for 2 episodes every season so far.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they're back to back because obviously, he had.
They write him out of the show.
Don Knutts had maybe a 2-week opening, and he came in and filmed 2 episodes of the show and then left.
How did they write his character out?
He goes to Raleigh to become a detective.
Really?
Yes, because it's in North Carolina.
Gets to be a detective.
So he goes to the big city, which kind of fits in because he's always talking about what the big city people are doing, and maybe it's just so small. We need a fingerprint kit. No, we don't.
Shape.
Yeah.
That's good
And
stuff.
you miss him. They tried to replace him.
Did they?
In the 6th season, they had a deputy.
Who was like
who is Floyd the Barber's nephew, who's kind of talks like this, and Andy, we gotta do this, right? Right. He tried to, but obviously he wasn't going over with the fans, and halfway through the season, they just cut him.
He just disappears.
So
he had a shtick, though, kind of like...
He had a shtick going on that he was, in a way, that he thought his position was very important. Oddly enough, when Don Knutts visits, and they have a team up, the two deputies have a team up, he goes, Don Knutts like, hey, give the kid a try, Ange, he's never seen again. Because they were trying to give Don Knutts to give him the thumbs up for fans, but fans weren't taking him. So they completely dropped him from the storyline.
That's so interesting.
And then the next season, Andy tells Don Knutts, he tells Barney Fife, he said, your job's still open if you want to come back. So obviously there is no deputy anymore.
Interesting.
They don't say what happened to him, but I was like, that's interesting.
I wonder what happened to maybe the actor quit or got fired. If he
I
got fired,
I think the fans just weren't behind him, and they just got back then.
The 50s?
60s,
Okay.
yeah.
It's so interesting to think about it because we didn't
No internet.
That's older than we are. And
yeah,
no internet. And I wonder how many of our listeners know who Don Knotts is, even. And that's just so strange to think about. But also just the fact that formula of spin-off television with the characters has been around since television.
Oh, yeah, it's been around forever.
Since
it's been around forever.
TV has been doing that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense. This is America. We make money off of everything we can.
Yep.
So they're like, this single part of this one thing makes a lot of money. Let's make even more money by, splitting up the Beatles and making Paul McCartney a solo act or whatever.
There's been good spin-offs, like very successful spin-offs, like Frasier from Cheers.
Frasier from Cheers was one of the best.
There's been poor spin-offs, Friends and Joey.
That's true. Joey didn't go over well.
No, it didn't go over well. Point. But so this is our top 5, and why don't you go ahead and go first?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to throw these out. These are the first ones that came to mind for me. I didn't look up any lists. I just thought about the shows that I've been either watching recently or haven't.
I have no honorable mentions.
I wouldn't say this is an ultimate list. I do have 1, 2, 3 honorable mentions.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there'll be any crossover.
And I don't think, no.
Oh, you're going to say 1.
Possibly 1.
All right, let's go for it.
I would even go half of 1. Even.
All right, I will say that even if it's the same show but a different character spinoff, I'll count that as a crossover.
Okay. Here, I'll go ahead and do my honorable mentions then.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, number 1, the first honorable mention is still there because it doesn't count because it's a movie. And I'm like, oh, crap, because I had it at my number 1.
Okay.
And we've talked about this before.
All right.
It's Harry Potter. Any Harry Potter character,
right?
And any I wrote any Harry Potter character or book because you and I have talked about how much depth there is in those books that doesn't ever get explored,
right?
In the movies,
right?
So,
right.
And then I realized what we were doing. I had to go back and double check. I'm like, crap, I can't use that one. So
TV. Gotta be TV. That's okay. Keep going.
My second one was honorable mention was Firefly because I want more Firefly. But then I thought, but if we're doing spinoffs. How exactly would I do that?
I thought about that too, and there's no one I would spin off. I'd have to have the crew is Firefly.
The crew is Firefly. Yeah. There's no one I would want a spin off for, really.
Exactly.
It might be interesting. I would still watch it just to get more Firefly stuff, but I don't think I could do it.
Right.
Because it's about that's what it show's about. And then it's so hard for me to vote for any Star Trek after Picard. After I've seen Picard, because that would have been the vote. Like 4 years ago.
I thought of that too.
5 years ago. I would have said, give me Jean-Luc Picard all by himself in his own show. And then, now that I've seen it, I'm not that happy about it. So I think that's a prime example.
That's funny. I thought about Star Trek too. But I was like, there's
also,
no one
like,
I want.
I'm thinking, like, my natural instinct was Star Trek. Like, boom, what do I want? And because anybody who's ever listened to this knows I'm a Star Trek fan. And after what I've seen lately, I'm struggling. Yeah. I'm struggling mightily to enjoy it. And so,
but we are watching season 3, I guess.
We're watching all of it.
Oh my gosh! Okay, I'm only doing this for you because I am completely checked out at this point. But I'm gonna watch season 3.
Yeah, it's gonna be a struggle.
All right.
My first number 5 is: have you seen Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon?
No, I know everyone says good things about it.
Magnificent show, and the character that I would love to see a spinoff of is Susie Meyerson, and that is Mrs. Maisel's manager. And she also is the voice of Lois Griffin on Family Guy.
Shut up. Okay, I know who she is. I know the actress.
And her name, I am looking up right now.
I know who that. I can see her
Alex
face.
Borstein.
Okay.
So she's magnificent in Family Guy and
very funny. Does several voices.
And is the primary voice. Is the voice of Mrs. Griffin.
Mm.
So Susie Meyerson is Mrs. Maisel's manager. Right from the off, you know. So they are together in the whole show, and let me tell you, season 3, 4 just came out of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel not too long ago. I think it's season 3, maybe season 4. And I'm telling you, I because it's similar to how we felt about Stranger Things. Stranger Things season 4, which we just talked about recently.
Right.
Season 4 was better than season 3 because by season 3 we were like, all right, nosedive. Let's see how hard this plane is going to crash and burn in season 4. You know, because you and I were ready.
Right.
We were ready for it to be like it's over, and they are burying the needle.
Halfway interested in it at
I'm
best.
halfway interested, but
at best,
I'm also interested to watch this train wreck and see how bad it gets. And that's what I've heard. I have not seen it yet, at least not as of this recording, but the new Jurassic Park movie is also being reported back to me in that way. That it's got the original cast and everything else.
Well, yeah, I know, but that is...
It's a huge nosedive of crap. Yeah.
I see, I thought so.
With a great franchise and great cast and everything else.
But those movies have not been good, Jurassic World.
And so this is
Jurassic 3 is a masterpiece.
This might be the one that tanks it. And stops them from finally doing more of these.
That's rough.
It's possible.
That's rough.
But we shall see. Time will tell. And so, Mrs. Maisel, though, and Susie Meyerson, there is a moment in the latest, I'll say the latest season there are a couple of moments in the latest season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that Susie gets a chance to shine as a character, and I mean, brought me to tears even once. Like, magnificent.
I've heard good things.
Acting. And she, like, one of her roommate dies, and what was great is that the character, spoiler alert there, I guess, the actor died for real. About halfway through filming season 3, and so they just kind of took those scenes away, or it was either after they filmed it or right at the end of the filming, so that it wasn't a whole lot of like a huge plot change,
right?
Because he was kind of a minor character anyway, but he was really funny. He was a good comedian, and they were paired up in a New York apartment, like not even 3 feet by 3 feet, like the smallest New York apartment you've ever seen, and it was hilarious because he's a huge fat guy.
Right.
And he was like slobby and everything else. It was like the worst roommate you could have, and he's 3 feet away all the time. And it was fantastic, but she loved him. And they loved each other, and they hated each other at the same time. So he died, the actor died, and they used that as a nice tribute to him, and they had a funeral scene where Susie was slated to do the... what's it called? The benediction, not the benediction, the eulogy.
Eulogy.
So she goes up there and she's mad because they're in a funeral home, and then across the street there's a packed funeral for some lady that, they're not in the show, but it's a packed service for somebody who just
for someone else.
And across the street at her, or across the room, one person and her.
Ghost town.
And that's it. And so it's nobody there, and so she gets pissed. She goes up to the front, says, "Excuse me, Pastor, Father, whatever," grabs the picture of the guy who died, and then goes across the hall, puts his picture up in front of the one for the lady who's dead at the funeral across the hall, and then goes up and gives the eulogy to that whole room. And because only the 2 other people came across, they were like, "What's happening?" So they followed. And so then she just said,
"It's funny.
He deserved better than this. He was better than this. He deserved people to listen to him. I don't care that none of you know who he is." And she just lets him have it about how mad she is that he died and that he did all these great things in his life, and no one cares. Yeah. And so she goes to talk about how big of a travesty that was, and everything else. And then she takes his picture back down, and then sort of an afterthought, she points at the end, "And I'm sorry about this lady too." And then she just walks out. And it was just such a priceless moment. And
like I said, I've heard good things.
So there's some good things like that, but also, so she's had some really great acting time to shine. Like she's clearly a comedic actor. She's very, very funny in Family Guy and everything else. But, and she's very funny in this too. But she's got a few scenes they've thrown in for her acting chops, and wow, I mean, brings the house down. It's magnificent.
Good for her.
Good. Yeah. So, and because she's Maisel's agent, but she also wants to manage other acts. So after Maisel ends, honestly, I would totally watch a show with her taking
a lead and doing more stories.
And who cares what her acts are? Because Miss Maisel is the comedian who, she's trying to make it big. That's the shtick of the show. She's Mrs. Maisel, she's a Jewish housewife in the 50s or 60s, and she's trying to make it big as a comedian, which doesn't happen. And but after that show's over with, I would love to see Susie do some other, and it doesn't matter. You could have a different act every week, and it doesn't matter. It's just something about different. Her juggling the New York hustle and bustle of it all. So
there you go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Good one. My number 5. I'm going for the low hanging fruit here. Mm-hmm. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
Spike. Obviously, Spike I think was good enough to have his own show after Angel leaves. He kind of carries the torch. I think he was funny. I enjoyed Angel. Angel was pretty good. Stepped down from Buffy, but still good.
Everybody I know says that.
Yeah, but it was still good. And Buffy, I think, could have continued the story on and had a great time. I do not believe, what's her name, Faith, who was rumored to get a spinoff.
Right.
She just was annoying.
Spike seems to be the favorite for that kind of a thing, though. Like, I totally agree with that.
And he could carry his own with his own little cast.
And you got enough of a world developed already. You wouldn't have to do any of that.
You wouldn't have to do much. Just stick him in a situation. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which a lot of spinoffs, you don't need world building. You just need to.
You're right.
It's like taking Frasier and giving a great ensemble and then put him somewhere else.
That's it.
Move Spike somewhere. So that was the low, easy, hanging one I wanted to talk about.
Would you have watched a Barney in Raleigh, North Carolina, or wherever in the big city spinoff if he had not been doing movies?
Oh no, that's interesting.
Would you have watched the Barney?
Oh yeah, and obviously.
Just put him in the big city.
Obviously,
and then he could have
let him go. Yeah.
Do you think it would have been as successful to have him as that character?
I think breaking up Andy Griffith and Barney Fife
would
really
you have to give him an Andy Griffith.
Yeah, they're Batman and Robin. They got to go together.
Yeah.
They got to go together. Yeah.
Do you think maybe that's what the appeal of Andy Griffith is for you, Batman and Robin? Because that's one of your favorite.
But they're a good duo. I appreciate them. They play off each other well.
Maybe we should do top 5 duos.
It's not a bad idea. Hey. Not a bad idea. So what is number 4 for you, sir?
Let's find out what my number 4 is. Jack and Karen from Will and Grace.
Oh, okay. They did a reboot of this show.
They did, and it was very good. It was not as good. It was very good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay.
They brought back a lot of jokes from Will and Grace. I'm a huge fan. That's that show. I've watched that whole show probably twice, at least every single episode all the way through. And
nice.
Yeah, magnificent characters and backstories for all of them. And I did appreciate in the reboot of the show that they essentially brought in every character who was still alive. They gave them, a little bit, a little farewell, a little thank you, a little nod. It was a lot of tribute to the original is what it was.
Good.
And I appreciated it. It got a little tiresome. Some of the same storyline over and over again, and it got a little phoned in a couple of times. However, Karen and Jack, who were played by Megan Mullally and Sean Hayes,
right,
never get old to me, and they're never tiresome, and they never phone it in. And I think the energy that those characters demand, you can't really phone it in. It's just not possible. And I wonder if there are any outtakes or excerpts or deleted scenes or whatever where, Megan Mullally and Sean they're just not feeling it that day, or they have the flu or something like that. Like how in the world did they pull that off? Like they must have had cocaine on hand for a few of those scenes. They must have had just some kind of adrenaline shot
to keep going that strong.
Oh my God, it's the most impressive acting, like just hyper high strung, big energy. Everything is amazing and wonderful and an inside joke, and it's just so clever and quick. I don't know how. And you watch one of the most famous scenes from Will and Grace is when Jack comes in and he's fallen in love with the new sexy male barista down at the corner of his building, and so he's trying to flirt with this guy that he thinks is super hot, but he sells coffee, and so he goes in and gets a new coffee like every 10 minutes and just keeps drinking coffee so he can keep talking to the guy. And so he comes up one day and he tells you this entire story in like a minute and a half at complete 3 times fast forward speed, and he does the whole thing in like 3 shots, and it's just like right. It's as fast as you can go and still be intelligible, and it's one of the most magnificent bits of comedy I've ever seen in my life. And it's so, I mean, if you have never seen Will and Grace and you want to get a snippet of what it's like I would recommend. That's all over YouTube too. It's like Jack McFarland on coffee.
And we've talked a little bit about Will and Grace in our Gene Wilder podcast because he was on the show.
Yes, absolutely.
He was the boss.
Yes, he
was
Grace,
Mr.
right? Stein. Yes, exactly. Not Frankenstein, but Mr. Stein. And it was fantastic. Yeah, it was a great tribute for Gene. It was one of the last things that he did before he died.
That's right. And he still had it.
And oh my God, yes, he did. It was fantastic. He can play that straight-faced, nonsensical comedy just better than
without breaking. Yeah,
better than anybody on earth.
That's true.
That's probably one of my all-time favorite bloopers is when they got him. They got him to break one time because Will broke character, and he said, I am Stein, I am Frankenstein, and then he couldn't say it back. He just tried. he started laughing and fell over sideways because he didn't know Will was going to say that, or he didn't know that.
I'll have to look at that blooper on YouTube.
It's a great blooper, yeah.
That's funny.
Because you can tell he's about to go into it. He's like about to say with it, and then he realizes what he said, and then he starts laughing. It's really great.
That's great.
Yeah, but their energy, I don't think it'd be possible for them to carry the show, because I don't think you could physically get that from those two actors day in, day out for an entire show, like all for themselves, because they're side characters to Will and Grace. So when they do come in, like, okay, well, we've got one scene this week, so we're gonna just like crush it. Give me the heroin, we're gonna go nuts, and like let's have it at it, or give me the cocaine, whatever it is. And then they do. They come in and they crush it, and it's amazing.
It's awesome. That's what you want to see.
I just don't know if it's possible for them to do that every day.
Yeah.
So
my number 4 is an oldie but a goodie. I think back in the 70s, they should have done a spinoff to a show in the 50s. I Love Lucy.
Okay.
I Love Lucy Lucille Ball went on to do different versions of her Lucy character in the Lucy show, the whatever else it was. Here's Lucy, and I can't remember what the other one was called, but
they played that as long as they could.
60s, 70s, and 80s, she had her own little sitcom, something revolving Lucy, and but I wish they would have said, I love Ricky. And I love Little Ricky or whatever. And it's not about Ricky Ricardo, it's about her son. Her son moves to some big city, maybe Chicago.
Yeah.
And in that one, Ethel can come because she was still around. I think what's his face? The Merch is the man. I think he was still alive in the 70s, at least the early 70s. So he could have guest starred. And then every once in a while, I want to see Desi Arnaz back on the screen. He was great.
And what would you have done with Ricky in the big city then?
Well, Ricky's doing his Chicago thing, whatever. Maybe he has his own nightclub too. His dad comes for one episode. His mom and dad come because you want to see the I Love Lucy gang back. And Lucy would be there, and maybe Desi's still working in New York. So Lucy's there with him, kind of helping out. It's kind of a Lucy show, but Desi Arnaz can come back because that was, you talk about dynamic duos, comedic duos.
That's a good point.
And one of the best there ever was Lucy and Desi.
Yeah.
The best, and it's undisputed because if you're number one in the ratings for 10 years, then you need to shut your mouth.
That's unbelievable.
And tell me that, you couldn't do that now. But that's how, and by the way, they had other things. Sure, there wasn't that much programming out there. They did have competition, but there were tons of other things to do than sit around and watch TV.
Exactly. Entirely different.
And people did more things back then.
Entirely
so to command an audience back then,
a market share like that?
Yeah, which has never been seen before. To recreate that in the 70s?
I'd like to read about that. How many shows have held that kind of a position of power and that ranking for that long?
The city of New York had water shortages because everyone went to the bathroom during commercials.
No.
And they ran. Yes, that's true.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. So it'd be everyone loves Ricky, but it's Little Ricky.
That's interesting. I had never thought of
Lucy. This is one of the first ones I thought about when I started thinking about Golden Age TV spinoffs.
That's a good deal.
But okay, so go ahead. What is number 3?
My number 3 is a bit of a stretch, but it is TV.
Yep.
Even though it was movie quality, it is HBO's Band of Brothers.
That's fair. They did a pseudo spinoff, right? Pacific.
They did like a Pacific Theater,
which is a different crew, but happens in the same world.
Yeah, I mean, this one. So it's real world heroes of
World
War
heroes,
II kind of thing. Yes, and the Korea after that, and so Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, huge World War II buffs, and anti-war people, and they wanted to write to this show and to make it as true and real as they could, and to show people the horrors of war, and also to honor the people who went through the things that they did. And there is just so much backstory for all of these characters that never gets shown in the show, and here's the way I know that. Have you seen Band of Brothers, first of all?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
Pacific's good too.
So spoiler alert with Band of Brothers, Don Malarkey is one of the main characters in Easy Company.
Yeah.
And he survives all the way to the end. Actually, believe it or not, Don Malarkey lived and died at the ripe old age, I think, of 95 or something. So he just died in like 2017, I think. Wow. And, died at home, basically, and never got wounded. And he was on the front lines, like longer than anyone in history was on the front lines consecutive days and never got hurt. Never got wounded, I should say. He got hurt, no doubt, but got frozen to death in Bastogne and everything else. Like, he went through hell, but never took a bullet like a lot of them did. He never lost a leg, nothing. And on the front freaking lines.
Impressive.
So... pretty amazing, and the way I know all of this is I got to meet the guy and when I was living in Eugene, Oregon, because there's a moment when he talks about where are you from, son? And he goes over to this Nazi soldier, and the Nazi replies back to him in English and says, I'm from Eugene, Oregon. And he turns around and says, what do you mean? Well, first of all, why are you speaking English? And second of all, what do you mean you're from Eugene, Oregon? You're in a German uniform. And he sits and he has a conversation with him right before Lieutenant Spears comes over and guns them all down and kills them. And illegally, and from what that moment, that was a big controversy. And Lieutenant Spears, that was his the butcher of his nickname. He got the butcher because he killed all those POWs, and that was a very violent thing that he shouldn't have done and would have normally been court-martialed for. But they needed him so badly as an officer, and you can't court-martial officers like that in the middle of the invasion of Normandy.
That's true.
And so. And they asked him about it years and years later, long after the war ended. And he was like, yeah, I did that. Absolutely. And I'll write a letter. I'll tell you exactly what happened. And he admitted all of it. And
wow.
Just said, well, I did this, and that, and the other thing. And
so you want to see that story?
I want to see things like that.
That's
what did
fair,
Spears do? And then what did Malarkey do? How did he get through all of that front line battle and not die? And it's just magnificent. And how many close calls did he have? Because when I went, I got to meet him, and he was doing a book signing in Eugene, basically. Mm-hmm. And so we got to ask him Q&A and everything else, and we got to chit-chat. So there was only 50 people there, maybe 50 to 100. It wasn't a huge gathering, is what I remember. But it was great. We all got to go up and shake his hand and say thank you and appreciate him and everything else. And it was wonderful. And it was just a couple of years before he died, so I'm really glad that I took the time to go do that.
I had the opportunity to meet him while he was still alive.
Exactly. It was magnificent. He was... he had his wits about him. He was a great guy. He was all there and everything. It was a lot of fun to listen to him talk about the war and stuff. And he was pissed because in Band of Brothers, his character was written out of the end, and he was mad because he was like, I was there the whole time. I went to Austria. I took Hitler's nest. I was there. Why isn't my character in there? I don't know. Ask HBO. He was mad because his character wasn't there, and it looked like he wasn't there. But no, he was a part of all of it. So.
Funny.
Don't know. Maybe the actor or something like that couldn't do it, or who knows what.
Who knows? Who knows?
So I would love to see any of those characters really, and how their singular experiences, not just about Easy Company, but the moments that they have. Some of my favorite moments from Band of Brothers are when they focus on the individual characters. Like there's an episode just for Doc Rowe, and there's an episode just for Lieutenant Spears and stuff. Those are my favorite parts, and so I would totally watch a show about any of those.
Okay. No, that based on true events, I would too. Mm-hmm. My number 3 was going to make Mikey really happy because I don't think you ever saw this, but it's the TV show Entourage.
Okay. No, I didn't watch
Entourage, early HBO. Mikey and I were big fans of it. It's basically the Mark Wahlberg story. Mark Wahlberg went to Hollywood with a bunch of his friends and brought his entourage with him wherever he went. He sold the idea to HBO, and they made a TV show loosely based around.
That's cool.
That Entourage.
That's the American dream right there.
And it's a lot of fun, a lot of guest spots, but the best character on Entourage was his agent called Ari Gold, played by Jeremy Piven. Ari Gold is a foul-mouthed, hot-headed agent.
Remind me who Jeremy Piven is.
Jeremy Piven, did you ever see... Oh, man, he's in everything, but he's one of the background characters. Or side characters. Have you seen Grosse Pointe Blank with John Cusack?
I just looked him up. Yeah.
Okay.
I totally know who we're talking
about.
Yeah,
he's in a ton of movies, but he's never the star. He's a supporting actor.
He's a great supporting actor.
He's a great supporting actor. So Jeremy Piven, this is his best role as Ari Gold. Like I said, foul-mouthed, ill-tempered, insensitive douche, and it's great. It's great, and he is really the only one with a decent story arc that just ends beautifully. They did a movie, in my opinion, to kind of ruin it, because it leaves you on a question.
Oh, I hate that.
And I love the TV show ends on a big question for the fans to debate whether did Ari Gold do it or not.
Yes.
And the movie answered the question. I was like, don't answer the question. I don't want to answer. I like the idea. I like the idea of the not a cliffhanger, but just and I mean, you're going, oh no! Because what do you do when he finally finds peace? That's when he gets everything he wants. Does he choose everything he wants? Or does he keep the peace he's now found that he's worked so hard to get? And it's a great ending.
I like that too. When a movie or a TV show leaves it open, and in either way, it's an interesting answer. Like whether yes or no, I like that. And like even the ending to the thriller movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he's going through memories. Inception. He leaves it open on purpose at the end. Like, did he make it back to his family?
Yeah.
Did he not? And I'm like, I'm okay with it either way. It's fine.
So now that they made the movie, they kind of spoiled the question, which is fine. Now I want to know what's he like. What's he doing now? Let's get everyone. Lloyd can come back. That was his assistant who he treated like dirt and garbage. And it was great. I mean, honestly, if you could just do an Ari Gold cut of the whole TV series, I'd let you watch it because it's interesting on its own. It holds your interest, but Ari Gold is really the one character you're like, I could never get tired.
And this is Piven.
This is Piven.
So you want to give finally Piven his big break.
In fact, the real guy's name is Ari something Goldstein or whatever it is. It's not Gold, but it's something else. But Ari, he said you can use my first name, but you have to have Jeremy Piven play me. Is what his agent said.
No kidding. Oh,
so
wow.
Jeremy Piven's best role. So yeah, the show would be called Gold. So you need one word there. But anyway, all right. So that's my number 3.
That's a good one.
What's your number 2?
Number 2 is Game of Thrones. Essentially any character. So another HBO back off.
I thought they all got killed off. I'd never seen it.
Who cares? You don't have to jump past season 7. Or 6, or whatever it was.
All right. Just build a story within the world.
A lot of people were very upset with the final season. I thought it was fine. Like, how else are you going to write off? How else are you going to finish the story with a lot of these characters, right?
Yeah.
That was what my thinking was. It's like, well, there's really no other way for them to die and then do all the things. Like, and I'm sure I might get some hate for saying that out loud, but really, like, so many of the ways that people met their ultimate demise, you're just like, okay, and could you have written something better? I would like to see that because this character was always set up to do that. And it was always going to happen that way from the very beginning. Anyway, what I'm saying is, similar to Harry Potter, you don't have to have a spinoff that takes place after. I don't want to see necessarily the 10 years later Harry Potter working at the Ministry of Magic or anything like that.
Right.
I'm maybe not interested in that. I'm interested in the book, seeing more from the books that I know and love.
Right.
So similarly with Game of Thrones, I mean, you're talking heaps of stuff.
There's stuff they could have, with all the books. Right.
And here's the
thing. Which is the case for anything adapted from a book.
It's true. And here's the thing: is I'm almost positive that it is coming. That it is in the works. It is in production. So as we air this, there'll probably be an announcement that the new Band of Brothers or the new Game of Thrones
spinoff
is happening.
Yeah.
Because you don't make that much money on something and then just leave it to die. You make spinoffs of things like that. HBO isn't going to leave that franchise on the cutting room floor. I think that's not going to happen.
If it has, I don't know if the Rings of Power have come out, but after that one bombs and fails, and just like Wheel of Time, they're going to realize they're going to go back to the old sandbox.
Right. So here's my thing.
I agree,
and I'm right there with you, and that's one of the points I was going to make. I'm really glad you said that because I think that I heard that this Game of Thrones spinoff had been in production a long time ago, and it really looks like that they are. Similarly with what Disney learned with Star Wars spin-off movies that did not do well. Now they're focusing all their money and time with Star Wars franchise on TV shows.
Right.
So there are no movies coming out, and there hasn't been anything coming out, and they canceled all their plans for movies.
Right.
And so I think, from what I gather, HBO is looking at the crystal ball of other companies and saying, oh, dang, look at what they're doing to Lord of the Rings. Oh, dang, look at what they did to this other show that bombed. Oh, we shouldn't do that with our biggest property we've got here.
It's all about keeping that streaming service hopping.
Yeah.
And you can make tons of money.
Yeah.
Tons
of money.
And then,
of course, COVID changes everything for
True.
a while. So
True.
That shook up a lot of things, no doubt. Canceled a lot of shows. Canceled a lot of really
Changed
good stuff.
the way people receive their consume their entertainment.
Media,
yes.
Right, exactly. So I'm almost positive. I would bet nearly anything on the fact that we will see more Game of Thrones. However, I think I would give it a go with almost any variant of it. If it were a spinoff of just about anything, I would probably give it a good solid try.
Okay, so
now, it's hard to believe that something like Lord of the Rings hasn't even come out yet. And just from what I've seen, I'm just like, oh my word, are you kidding me with this? It looks horrendously bad. And it looks more like whomever was in charge of the bad parts of The Hobbit, and not even the good parts of the Hobbit. Like, just the bad parts. Like, they gave them the TV show, and that's what it looks like. I don't know what happened, but we'll see. I can't judge it before I see it, so I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
So I can't give it too hard of a knock. But
I can. It's going to be garbage, but I didn't like the movies. So.
I know you didn't, because you're much more of a book purist than us. And that's completely acceptable. Yeah. So, Game of Thrones, I'm very excited about whatever form it takes. That's why it's my number 2.
Okay.
And that's why I genuinely wrote, like, I really don't care. There's just so much material, good material that they can pull from that would make me want to go back and read the books again, and that's what I want to see more of. I really want that with Harry Potter. I really want that with Game of Thrones.
All right, we'll see when that prediction comes true. My number 2 is a very popular cartoon series that ended.
Cartoon series? I don't even think about cartoons.
You gotta go cartoons,
Dang it!
Batman the Animated Series.
Oh,
Nightwing.
So Nightwing.
You spin off Nightwing.
Okay.
And Bloodhaven. There's a bunch of other characters that weren't explored in the animated series. Smaller characters, the Clue Master, Calendar Man, Black Mass. Wow. There's a few that you just didn't have time to. So now put them in Bloodhaven because they're B characters anyway.
Tons of.
I don't know if Firefly was ever put in there either. But the thing is, though, you bring all those characters and you put them in Bloodhaven, have Nightwing go off. You can have Robin guest star. You can have Batman guest star. You can have Batgirl and Catwoman. You can have everyone guest star. But the big names can show up, but it's revolving around Robin, who we've been watching for 3 seasons. Right. And now he's Nightwing.
You reckon they're trying to do that with Suicide Squad? And that sort of...
I don't know, but I know that the DC animated universe missed their chance on spinning off Nightwing. Agreed. I think Nightwing would have been a great and smart way to spin off the series.
Do you think they could they couldn't do it now? They
could do it right now because it's voice acting.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
But right now they seem content on just doing a movie.
But people don't know Nightwing. So you're saying that it would have been more popular then?
I think. Well, no, they haven't missed the boat. I mean, people would still watch it. It's called HBO. If HBO Max wanted to pick up a Nightwing animated series from the creators of the Batman animated series, they'd do that in a heartbeat, I think. That's a no-brainer. Because you could make it more adult, too.
Would the Batman animated people want to sell it, too?
I mean, they would be the ones in charge. Paul Dini and them, because DC put their rights underneath HBO. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
DC streaming service no more. All that went to HBO Max.
Oh, I did not know that.
So they would create content. That'd be great. That's something that could still happen. True.
Yeah. I don't have HBO Max, but that would help.
You make a spin-off that's a direct sequel to the animated TV series.
That might be one of the things that makes
done. That brings tons of people in. They're doing that to the X-Men 90s cartoon. Why not do it to Batman animated series?
I can't believe they're redoing X-Men 90s.
It's gonna suck so bad, but I can't watch it because I love the show so much.
No, it's one of the greatest cartoons ever. Fantastic. Okay.
But go ahead. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is Parks and Recreation, and there is one character from Parks and Rec who I struggled to watch this show for years before finally somebody sat me down, and on maybe my 4th time to try to watch it because everybody says it's so good. Have you seen Parks and Rec, Matt?
No, I haven't, but I have a feeling this would be on Mikey's list too because he was a big Parks and Rec fan.
Really?
Yes.
So you won, no crossover.
Well, not really a win. I didn't think we'd have one.
Okay, so that's a win.
Okay. Yeah, well, all right.
So I sat down, and then finally Taylor Yakowenko and Aubrey Skinner sat down and just forced me to watch it, and then we started at season 3. And that was the key, is to not watch season 1, not watch season 2, just jump right into season 3.
When they're all comfortable in their characters.
When things are in their character.
Everything's moving along. Yeah, gotcha.
And and Ron Swanson shows up. And Ron Swanson is one of the most American, stereotype characters of all time. And I was just talking about his wife, Megan Mullally, in the Will and Grace spinoff, but Nick Offerman is the guy who plays Ron Swanson. And he's got the combed over hair and the mustache, the power mustache.
Right, yeah. The look.
Else, and just there, I laughed so hard. And every time he's on screen, he dominates every scene he's in. Dominates it, every scene.
Every time.
And you want to know what Ron Swanson's doing in the background. It doesn't matter what the storyline is. And he can walk in for a second and a half, and you will rewind it just to make sure you didn't miss something, because he's that good. And he crushes every scene he's in, magnificently done. And the character's written so well, so funny. And he just, like one of the greatest moments in television history, he comes in and he orders, he sits at a diner and he says, "I would like to order all of the bacon and eggs you have." And he says, "All right, coming right up." And he stops the waiter before he can. He's like, "Excuse me, son. I think that what you think I ordered is a lot of bacon and eggs. What I said was, I want all of the bacon and eggs you have." The waiter looks him in the eye and he's like, "Yes, son, you heard." He's just... And so he loves meat. He only eats meat. He's like he's American, hard, bleeds red, white, and blue kind of guy, and he's all about capitalism and letting companies fail, and he works for the government on purpose. He's a hardcore libertarian, that's what it is.
Okay.
So he deliberately works for the government on the government's dime with Parks and Recreation just to try to make it fail, basically, because he doesn't believe in government. And so he does everything possible to help the American taxpayer.
Of course,
so he's
right.
doing his civil duty by working at the Parks and Recreation Department. So just the way his character can twist any situation into something patriotic is just so fun and magnificent. It's I would watch.
Deserving of his own. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Number one without question.
Number one without question. My number one without question was the one that I immediately thought about, because I've always talked about this. Highlander is one of my favorite shows. Hence the title of this one of my podcasts is Prince of the Universe, and it's a Highlander thing. And so I love Highlander. And they did a spinoff called The Raven based off Amanda. Amanda is no good. She's the Catwoman to his Batman, but she's not good on her own. She's not good on her own. And that series failed after first season. And the character is more interesting as Mythos. He's the very old immortal who's been around for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And he's so old that later on in season 5, the best season ever, he is revealed to have been one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And death at that.
That's amazing.
And so there's a lot of more, we see there's more character to him than we thought. And so I'd love to see
because there you've got
more.
You've got all
you can go
all
back.
History.
Yeah, you can go back all through history now.
Wow, that's a great idea.
And he's such a rich character by the end of the series that they could have done more with him. And the actor's just great too. You've seen him in a ton of things. He's been a minor character here and there. He was in X-Men. He was one of the General's men. He was the head guy of the invasion that came in and raided the X-Mansion and the original Bryan Singer X-Men. He's the one little guy that has the small bit role and all this stuff. Peter Wellings, I can't remember his name. That's not right. Not Peter Wellings. Peter something. No, Peter Wellings is RoboCop. But Peter something. But anyway, really great actor, and to have his own show would have been just brilliant.
I mean, that's a rich backstory for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I thought about this too. There were a couple that I considered that I was like, I wouldn't want a whole spinoff because these characters are better as a mystery. Like they're better when you just give me a hint of them, or just have them show up a moment here and a moment there and let me fill in the blanks. Yeah. There were some that I thought about and I'm like, no, definitely would not want to see more about that. I want to keep that mystery of that character.
And what I want to know is what the listeners think. Because they maybe are naming shows, cartoon. Remember, not anything on TV is fine.
I didn't even think about cartoons.
Well, I try to think of other cartoons. There's not really another cartoon I'd want to spin off of. Okay. But the thing is, though, listeners, let us know.
Please.
What
did we miss?
TV spin-offs should there have been? Don't say, well, they should have made this one better. No, just...
No, not better. We're not
which
talking about
one did they
reboots.
do?
No,
where did they miss the boat? Who should have gotten a spin-off? Mm-hmm. And, we'll see you next Saturday.
Morning
Samoflange.
Ooh.